In this first video, I'll talk a bit about the nature of humanity and why I believe the questions surrounding life, existence, humanity and consciousness are so central to Half-Life's lore. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the Combine in contrast to human nature and explain why I think they are the ultimate antithesis to everything it means to be human and why that makes them the perfect antagonist. There's probably a lot of written literature within philosophy on the subject of humanity itself, but honestly, the word humanity has such an incredibly broad meaning and is very difficult to narrow down, and I'm not familiar with enough of the literature, so this video is mostly going to be my own thoughts and some broad definitions. Because of that, it might seem a little bit incoherent and far-fetched at certain points, so I apologize for that. Additionally, to understand this video, I'd really recommend being somewhat familiar with the lore of Half-Life, as I'm going to mention a lot of lore-related things and not elaborate a whole lot, because that would take way too much time. So, with that out of the way, let's get into it. What makes human nature unique? I can say, with relative confidence, that I am human, and that you probably are too. Humans are alive, and humans are conscious. But what is it that makes us feel like we are human, like we are alive? To define the word humanity, and to narrow that definition down, is something that has never been done, at least not successfully. The human condition, as a literary term, is almost always used with ambiguity, referring to some broader scope of life, existence, society, ethics, and so on, all of which are broad topics on their own. The word humanity continues to be scrutinized from many different perspectives, like religion, psychology, philosophy, history, and the natural sciences. Humanity may be viewed as a virtue, linked with the basic ethics of altruism, where love and compassion towards other human beings and living things is a central part, and sometimes seems to counteract fairness and reason as we define them, and yet seems to be absolutely integral to our way of functioning and building societies. Love, kindness, and social intelligence are defined as the three main distinctive traits that humans appear to possess, and these aspects, within the context of humanity as a virtue, are consistent across all cultures around the globe. It's something which can't be described in words, but rather encompasses everything we are, have been, and ever will be. We possess an awareness and comprehension of the world around us that makes it possible for us to draw conclusions using logic and imagination instead of just our five senses. We have an ability to adapt and survive against all odds. We also consider ourselves to be individual beings among other individual beings, and we express that individuality through different personalities, communication, language, physical appearance, interests, passions, and more. Consider the main characters of Half-Life: Gordon Freeman, Alex Vance, Barney Calhoun, Eli Vance, Isaac Kleiner, Mossman, Dr. Breen, and so on. All of these characters have their own personality, their own way of expressing individuality. They interact with one another in different ways. They share a conscious connection with one another in different ways. They are aware of being individuals. They possess an inner sense of self. Some of these characters fight together against a united cause to preserve their very existence, fighting on through hardships and retaining that small flicker of hope, even though at certain times hope seems truly lost. It's a remarkable trait for humanity, the ability to feel hope. And in contrast to everything I just mentioned, we have the Combine. The ones who trickle down from interdimensional space, swarming the Earth like opportunistic mosquitoes drawn to the fragrance of blood. The beings in possession of technological advancements we could never even dream of imagining. The beings who conquered Earth and eliminated millions, if not billions, of its people in merely 7 hours, until Earth simply surrendered in order to not be wiped out from existence entirely. The Combine is genuinely one of the most frightening antagonists I've ever seen in a video game or any piece of media ever. They are like machines. Their very presence, the way they seem to function, is frightening because it stands in direct opposition to everything we take for granted as meaningful. When we look at an intelligent species like the Combine, we expect them to be alive the same way we think we are, to possess the same notions of ethics and consciousness as we do. But we don't see that with the Combine. Something is missing. They lack that spark of life, the individuality and passion that every human possesses. The Combine never distinguishes between individuals. They don't seem to have an ego or a sense of self in the same way that we do. Whenever the Combine are discussed, they are just referred to as this enormous, homogeneous force, like a cosmic cloud moving through the universe to spread out across it as quickly and efficiently as possible. The concept of the self, the individual mind, it seems to be missing from their very nature. It's as if the concept of individuality never even occurred to them, or was perhaps lost somewhere along the way of their evolution. We don't actually see any of the Combine's leaders, founders, or any important individual leaders or spokespersons, except Dr. Breen and the advisors, who are just another species that the Combine conquered somewhere down the line of their expansion. In fact, one of the most horrible things they do to the humans on Earth is to convert the people into Combine soldiers or workers. Let's talk a bit about that very process of conversion, because I think it deserves a segment of its own. The process of turning a human into a Combine soldier involves removing the person's memories and also probably rewiring their brain to inhibit emotions. When this process is done, there is nothing left to distinguish the soldiers from one another. Their nervous systems have been altered, their identity removed, their body mutilated and put in a suit. They are identical. But it doesn't just start from nowhere. The Combine don't just snatch a person off the streets and put them in a suit. No, the process is slow and deliberate, methodical and experimental, and the change starts from within. The civil protection officers, or metrocops, that we see in City 17 are just regular humans wearing uniforms. They haven't been physically altered yet. It's not until after a human has become a metrocop that they are able to undergo further alteration and become a so-called transhuman soldier. Anyone can make the choice to join the ranks, but why would you? Why would anyone willingly do this? And what is the utility in building an army this way? Why doesn't the Combine just do what I said earlier? Why don't they just snatch people off the streets if the process is so straightforward? Well, my theory is that the Combine are deliberately choosing the individuals based on certain traits. By making the humans essentially make the choices themselves, they are choosing the best candidates for their army. Someone who gives up their humanity freely would be the easiest to brainwash and convert down the line. These individuals would make the best soldiers. A citizen either has the choice, in quotation marks, to join the Combine, live obediently under their oppressive rule until the end of their days, or resist and suffer the consequences of doing so. Anyone who openly resists obviously has enough willpower and humanity, if you like, to perhaps become a threat down the line. The first step to becoming a metrocop seems to be to just join. Maybe out of fear, maybe for power, for a sense of control, or maybe just because they want better living conditions.
I don't know about you, but I'm ready to join civil protection just to get a decent meal.
Then, as soon as they put on the uniform, they have already abandoned a part of themselves. Their individuality and identity is now replaced by the uniform. The metrocops in-game all look identical, and I believe that's both intentional and a necessity. The game mechanics at the time didn't allow for much variation within NPC models. But there is probably a lot more physical diversity than what we can see in-game, since the humans underneath aren't altered yet. Again, it's not until after they become transhuman soldiers that they all undergo the same physical transformations to look completely identical. However, even though the Metrocops are human, there's still not much to differentiate them. The speaker and the microphone inside the helmet probably makes everyone's voice sound the same, regardless of their original pitch. There is simply no place for individual expression within even the lowest ranks of the Combine. Even though the Civil Protection are humans, they are just Metrocops, not individuals. Not James the Metrocop or Sarah the Metrocop. They have already become part of the Combine, who are methodically destroying what it means to be human by first and foremost rooting out any diversity existing within it. And that's interesting, but incredibly scary to think about. When someone is part of the Civil Protection Force, they are continuously watched. They are threatened with consequences if they don't follow orders, and coaxed with rewards such as rank points and,
Reminder, 100 sterilized credits qualifies non-mechanical reproduction simulation.
But they still retain their memories of their past life and of recent actions. They might even be old enough to remember the time before the Combine invasion. They might have had loved ones, hobbies, dreams and aspirations. They remember them every time they try to fall asleep at night, but they also remember all the people they killed in the name of the Combine. And if they have any humanity remaining, then that guilt must be crushing. If you put someone through that kind of mental anguish and then give them the option to forget all about it and live a life without emotion, don't you think they would eagerly choose memory replacement down the line just to escape the horrible guilt of all they've done? And so the choice is made. As simple as that. They have chosen to become a Combine soldier. What is then left of their humanity only exists within the echoes of past time. There is no personality, no curiosity, no emotion, no intuition, no sense of identity, no memory of what they were before or what they could have been. And they have to repeatedly undergo cognitive memory replacement in order to stay like this, it seems.
Overwatch is requesting all units refresh and resolve. Cognitive dissonance will not be tolerated. Negative. Memories included. Update is live. Acceptance is mandatory. Copy. Accepted. Updating cognitive suppression by events. Update complete in T-3 seconds. Dissonance resolved.
They might as well not be aware of being alive. And the worst part is, they don't even know it. From their perspective, they have always been part of the great homogeneous force that is the Combine. For them, there is no other reality. They have been completely erased and replaced. But maybe sometimes a cognitive glitch or error temporarily breaks the bonds. Maybe somewhere deep within the neurological network, some memories remain, some sense of self is fighting to be kept intact, and sometimes a flicker of the original self is brought to the surface for only a brief second, gaining sentience, awareness, and the person can remember who they were again. And they remember, once again, all they have done, and all they can see and feel before the world goes black again is terror and remorse. Another thing that differentiates the Combine from humanity is that we never hear a clear motive for the Combine's actions. We only see the results, the consequences of their influence of the planets they conquer. Can we really then say that the Combine are evil? An evil or unethical act denotes a motive, an act in direct violation of the commonly accepted ethics inside a society. The Combine, in a way, are like a force of nature, a cosmic inevitability. Like a colony of bacteria grows in a habitable medium, so does the Combine grow in size and number by sheer automation, it seems. Like the gas moving to fill out the empty space inside an expanding chamber, so does the Combine expand throughout the universe. Like a giant supernova, consuming and disintegrating any planets or adjacent celestial objects in its path, so does the Combine destroy without any conception of wrongdoing. From this perspective, the Combine seems to not meet the criteria of being evil any more than a hurricane is evil for destroying a city, no more evil than the malignant cells of a cancer growth, slowly draining an organism of the energy needed to sustain its life. In their minds, if they have any, Ethics don't exist as we know them. They act not with malicious intent because they aren't aware that such a thing exists. The Combine exists and expands for the sake of expanding, with no other purpose or goal in mind than to expand, to grow, to continue existing for the sake of existing, to keep evolving. The Combine simply must grow.
In our current unparalleled enterprise, refusal to collaborate is simply a refusal to grow, an insistence on suicide, if you will. Did the lungfish refuse to breathe air? It did not. It crept forth boldly while its brethren remained in the blackest ocean abyss, with lidless eyes forever staring at the dark, ignorant and doomed despite their eternal vigilance. Would we model ourselves on the trilobite? Are all the accomplishments of humanity fated to be nothing more than a layer of broken plastic shards, thinly strewn across a fossil bed, sandwiched between the Burgess Shale and an eon's worth of mud? In order to be true to our nature and our destiny, we must aspire to greater things. It is futile to cry for mother's milk when our true sustenance awaits us among the stars.
Something about that speech almost makes it seem like the nature of the Combine is an inevitability for any evolving intelligent society. And that in and of itself is what is so scary about them and what makes them even more alien to us. Because we think there is some greater purpose we're striving towards. We view the ethics of altruism as a crucial component to our existence. But Dr. Breen's argument is that in order to evolve and continue the progression of science and knowledge, we must leave something behind. The cost of transcending the boundaries of existence as we know them is our very essence of life and integrity. If humans, in a few thousand or million years or so, eventually gain the knowledge to solve more and more of the riddles of existence, where will we go from there? When we traverse the stars, will it be to expand and conquer, or will it be to delve even deeper into the mysteries and hidden truths that lay concealed to us for the moment? If humanity survives long enough to do so, would we have to choose between technological advancement and retaining our humanity, our compassion, and our reason for doing anything? I believe there is something within human existence that makes us more than the sum of our parts. And that is a central theme to the Half-Life franchise. When I witness the interactions between the characters in the games, when I see the citizens of Earth broken down and reduced in every way a person can be broken down, and yet they continue fighting, it serves as a reminder of something crucial to what it means to be human. And it makes me thankful for the life and humanity I possess, and it makes me grieve for the ones who have lost it. It's a humbling reminder of our place in this frightening world, our cosmic insignificance and vulnerability, but also that our vulnerability may just be one of our greatest strengths. For me, the reason I continue to get out of bed in the morning is the spark of wonder of all the things in the world. I'm simply amazed that it exists. All the things there are to see, to experience, and to share with others, all the knowledge we haven't found out yet, but which still might lie just beyond our horizon. To exist not simply for the sake of existence, but to squeeze out every bit of life before my existence within this brief window of time inevitably ends. The joy of experiencing a fleeting moment of love in the midst of all the world's suffering and my own bouts of depression and chronic anxiety is enough to compel me to keep fighting. Because there is something greater within and beyond ourselves that we all feel, and we all know it, but we can't put it into words. But it binds us and tethers us to existence itself. And that, to me, is what it means to be human.
We continue to diligently assemble and train a new generation of scientists and technicians. For what the Combine fear the most is not any tangible human weapon, but our will, our intellect, our ability to respond selectively and rationally to every terror they turn against us. We place our firmest hope in the human spirit, even knowing how easily it may be shattered. We have all seen friends and family crushed by the Combine. Some of our neighbors have allowed themselves to be co-opted and purged of their humanity by the military machine. And those who resisted have met a most terrible fate. Still, I cannot overstate how important it is that we retain our humanity. Only this will allow us to hold together, as we must, for their inevitable return, and what is certain to be unimaginable retaliation. This has been Dr. Isaac Kleiner, formerly of Black Mesa, now simply a citizen, like all of you, of Earth. Let me just add to all those who can hear me now, as we struggle out of the shadow of our malefactors, welcome back to the light.